He is the king of college football preseason publications. Get your copy. It's not too late, even with the season bearing down on us here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Of course, we're talking about Phil Steele, the most accurate, the most exhaustive. There's no question about that. But if you look at the predictions and projections from year to year, the most accurate in the industry for the last 20 to 30 years. Phil, we appreciate you stopping by again for a second time this summer.
Hey, always a pleasure being on your show, Mark. I love it when I've got a very knowledgeable host like yourself.
All right. Well, let's dive into some teams here. So we want to direct everyone to our previous live stream with Phil a couple of weeks ago. So we hit on a number of the elites and went through a number of the teams across the four major conferences. I'm going to start with Clemson this time around, Phil, because what strikes me as intriguing about Clemson, and I know that you're high on Clemson, a lot of people are, is that they bring back more significant talent, production on both sides of the ball than just about anybody in the country. Those three wide receivers are spectacular. Cade Klubnik leaps and bounds better than he was the previous season. Offensive line should be better than it's been in quite some time. But what troubles me is that I look at the list of defensive players, and individually, these guys have tremendous track records in college. They should be NFL draft picks, but collectively, 85th against the run last year. Aside from that last-second heroic 56-yarder against SMU, in the regular season, the best team they beat last year was 7-6 Pitt. I'm having issues trying to figure out which direction Clemson's going to take this year.
Yeah, when I look at Clemson, you hit it right on the head with the defense. What a unusual year for Clemson's defense. They gave up 374 yards per game. I can't remember the last time they gave up anywhere near that number. And there's just way too much NFL talent on the defensive side of the football. You could just go right down the list and you've got first rounder, second rounder, third rounder for the upcoming draft. I think the big addition is Tom Allen coming in as defense coordinator. He'll get that defense straightened out and they will be top notch. And if that's the case, they may have the most potent offense in the country. 2 years ago, Cade Klubnik as a quarterback only had a 19-9 ratio. The reason for that is top three receivers were out early in the season. Well, last year he got those injured players back, plus they added in a couple of big-time recruits, and all of a sudden with the receiving core, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. You hit it right on the head. They have my number 2 receiving core this year, number 2 offensive line. I like the running backs. I think the addition of Gideon Davidson at running back, my number 3 rated running back out of high school, to go along with Haynes and the converted wide receiver Adam Randall, gives them top-notch running backs. And, of course, Cade Klubnik completes it. I actually have Clemson favored in all 12 games this year, Mark. I think they're a no-brainer. They will make the playoff this year. And I like the fact they got the playoff experience last season against Texas. And I think we're going to see Clemson potentially make it all the way to the national title game. I'm really bullish on the Tigers. What's their over-under, by the way, in Vegas? I believe it's 9.5.
Something like that. So it seems to be a pretty bullish over 9.5 there. But you touched on a very intriguing unusual running back situation for an elite team to be that thin at running back. So if those guys that you just mentioned, Adam Randall, of course, a converted wide receiver who got reps very late in the season and in the playoff game against Texas, if he is fully converted and they trust the 5-star freshman to carry some of the load, then they should be fine. But a pretty thin running back room there at Clemson, so they need to avoid the injury bug there in particular. We got Phil Steele here, of course, as the preeminent college football preseason publication, and it's not too late to get out there and grab it. And Phil, the best destination online to get your copy would be
philsteele.com. And when you go to philsteele.com, you can have access to the hard copy, the digital copy. We also have an FCS digital version with 2 full pages on every FCS team, and an NFL version with 4 full pages on each NFL team. Those are all digital, but you can also order the hard copy online. And when you order the hard copy online, you get the digital magazine for free as well.
So, Phil, before we continue, I'll let you know that I took my shot at the writing industry myself. So I produced this last off season, Disputed National Champions. It's a historical look at the 1990s. So I have dissected each season during the 1990s. And I chose the 90s because, as you well know, that was the transition from the poll era into the BCS. And then obviously later the college football playoff. So I consider it the most transformative era in college football, or decade in college football, in determining a champion. So we go through each season and we kind of dissect the resumes and the records and determine, did the pollsters get it right, or did the BCS formula get it right? And what would that exact season look like in future iterations of whether it's the BCS or the 14 playoff or the 12 team or a proposed 16 team playoff. And so we enjoyed writing that and hope to do future editions as well. And
I
would
need
love
to
to
get,
get
I need to get my
copy
hands
for
on
you.
that copy there.
Yeah, I
Mark.
will contact you and I'll get one out your way. Absolutely. Yeah, Florida State. I know we touched on Florida State a bit last time, but I wanted a little bit more about the talent level there overall coming through the transfer portal. Of course, when Mike Norvell has hit it big, it's been because of the Keon Colemans and the Jared Verses and the Braden Fisks of the world. And their high school recruiting has not been stellar. Florida State. Now they bring in Thomas Castellanos. And of course, Jordan Travis was a big hit in the transfer portal. DJ Uyangalele, not so much. And that was just a putrid offensive performance last year. So how do you project Castellanos with a really good offensive coordinator in Gus Malzahn and Florida State getting back to where they expect to be?
Yeah, and remember, Castellanos was actually recruited by Malzahn at UCF. So he is the perfect quarterback for this offense. And, he didn't fit the Boston College offense last year. Now, I do believe he fits in great with Malzahn's offense. And you look at this team. I did a thing on philsteele.com about homegrown teams. And I think teams that bring in freshmen and develop them to seniors are going to be better off this year. But as you touched on, Mike Norvell has hit some home runs in the transfer portal, like he did in both 22 and 23 when they won 10 and 13 games. And I think he's hit some home runs this year. I think the danger of having a transfer portal heavy team is what happened last year to Florida State, which is once things started to go bad, things went bad. And maybe there wasn't that team atmosphere, the team cohesion. But what we see with Florida State this year, they're going to get off to a much better start. I do expect them to lose to Alabama, but beating an East Texas A&M, Kent State, at Virginia, this team's not going to be 0-3 to start the year. They're going to be 3-1 when they host Miami of Florida. That's a big game. If they beat Miami, look at the rest of the schedule, Mark. Home against Pitt, they would be favored. At Stanford, favored. Wake Forest, favored. You can come a lot of games down the stretch where they'd be favored. And I do think there'll be a dog at Clemson and at NC State. But this is a Florida State team that I think is going to have the biggest jump in record this year. They only won 2 games last year. I think they can win 8, potentially even 9 games this year. If they beat Miami on October 4th, I'd put them in the ACC contender role. If they don't beat Miami, it'll be a much improved year for Florida State. But keep your eyes on this team. I'm really intrigued by October the 4th.
We'll go directly to the arch rival. Let's do that and talk some Miami football because, of course, Carson Beck had a pretty remarkable season 2 years ago. Now the completion percentage dipped about 6 or 8 points, something in that range. The interceptions doubled. Of course, he couldn't finish the season because he was knocked out just prior to halftime of the SEC championship game, but he moves to Miami. And in most situations, the addition of a Carson Beck would be celebrated. But, of course, they're coming off a Cam Ward season in which they produced the number 1 offense in college football. So just, your thoughts about Miami trying to fix the defense, Carson Beck's fit with this offense, and what should prove to be a really strong running game as well.
Yeah, and I think last year when you look at the defense, their secondary was injury plagued and not very good. And what they had to do was sometimes they drop their defensive ends in coverage to help them out. But this year, with a new defense coordinator in Corey Heatherman, they have an upgraded secondary, much, much better. And that will allow Ruben Bain and Akeem Messidor to tee off and rush the quarterback. I think they'll have a much improved defense this year. Offensively, Carson Beck, last year was plagued by a poor receiving core, a lot of drop passes last year, may have led the nation in drop passes. Should have an upgraded receiving core. It's not experienced, very inexperienced, but they're talented. Malachi Toney, the true freshman, keep your eyes on him. CJ Daniels comes over. He had a big year at Liberty 2 years ago. The offensive line's really good. Cristobal's done a good job building that. And he hit the transfer portal hard. So it's another transfer portal type of team. I'm intrigued by that game against Notre Dame to open up the year. They've got some big tests early, the Florida State game. But remember, they were basically one game play away from being in the ACC championship last year. That tough loss to Syracuse. So I think Miami's dangerous and a legitimate ACC contender.
Phil, you're hitting it on the segues here. I think we might as well just go straight to Notre Dame because, yeah, that's a week one matchup that everyone's looking forward to. And interesting that since the era of the transfer portal, Notre Dame, those first two decisions that they needed to make, they bypassed the quarterback room that they had in play and went out and got a Sam Hartman, went out and got Riley Leonard. Now, this time, they must have felt good about CJ Carr. Now he's going to go into a Lion's Den where Hard Rock Stadium is obviously not packed just on occasion. But the last time they went down there, of course, 2017, they got really ran out of the stadium and they could run into a similar buzzsaw in regards to the crowd showing up. But your thoughts about Notre Dame and obviously Marcus Freeman doing a remarkable job there and them really breaking through some barriers that they have not seen in 30 plus years and what they were able to accomplish last year. And now they pretty much have a battle-tested team.
Yeah, and I think if you even go back to the championship game last year, Mark, that Notre Dame was down their top defensive lineman, one of their top offensive linemen, and their running back Jeremiah Love was not 100%. Had those guys all stayed healthy through the playoffs, I think they would have given Ohio State an even better game in the championship game. I believe they're dangerous this year, and CJ Carr doesn't have to go out and win games for them. He just has to distribute the ball. I mean, they've got Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in the backfield, my number 2 running back core in the country. You look at the offensive line this year. I rated the number 3 offensive line and the receiving core number 14. So Carr is a player that it's either going to be Carr or Minchie, but I do think it'll be Carr. But he doesn't have to go out and win games. He just has to distribute. Defensively, all 3 units rank in my top 5 units in the nation. You look at the cornerbacks, Christian Gray and Leonard Moore are both NFL caliber. That's going to allow the defensive line to tee off. They've got the linebacking core with Snead and Bowen. It's a very dangerous Notre Dame team. I actually have them favored in all 12 games this year. I'm a little concerned about the Miami game on a Sunday on the road, the Texas A&M game at home. But I believe they'll be favored in all 12 games. They're a no-brainer for the playoff once again. And I love the fact they played through the playoffs, made it all the way to the championship game. Maybe this is the year they break through.
And sometimes those losses aren't where we would expect them to be. I'm going to throw out that road trip to Arkansas as a possible sticking point right there for the Irish.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Arkansas is a team that if you follow Coach Pittman, they always play the big boys tough. They've just come up a play here, a play short. Getting that game at home, I think they're going to be fired up for that.
You, of course, are hearing the voice of Phil Steele, the king of college football preseason publications, and it is not too late to get yours at Barnes & Noble or at philsteele.com. You see the Twitter handle right there as well. All right, leave those comments and questions there in the chat. Include a super chat so it lights up, and we can pass that on to Phil if you would like to ask him a question about your favorite team. All right, let's move on to the SEC. Texas, NFL draft losses all over the place. A number 1 preseason selection by both polls, a slight favorite or underdog, I should say, against Ohio State in week 1. And of course, Arch Manning is all the talk of the town going into this one. And you certainly, along with most, believe that Texas will make a serious run to at a national championship.
Yeah, and despite losing 12 NFL draft picks, this team's loaded. I believe they have the best defense in the country, led by Anthony Hill at linebacker, Malik Muhammad, and Michael Taff in the secondary, and Trey Moore, the addition from UTSA. I think he's going to have a big impact at the defensive end spot. This is a loaded defense. Now, offensively, my biggest question mark is probably losing 4 offensive linemen. How are they going to replace them? They've got talent, and all these guys gained some experience, and naturally, they're all VHTs, or very highly touted players. So I think Texas, talent-wise, is right up there with anybody in the country. Now, you look at their schedule this year, Mark, they are an underdog at Ohio State. They have to play Florida in the Swamp. They play Oklahoma in Dallas, and they play Georgia on the road as well. That's a Georgia team that's had their number the last 2 years. The schedule is part of the reason I didn't pick them to win the regular season SEC. I picked Georgia to win it all because of the schedule. But I think when Texas makes it to the playoff this year, which they will, they could be much like Ohio State last year, maybe drop a game or two during the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, they'll have the talent. The offensive line will be experienced. And of course, Arch Manning will have experience at that point. So a very dangerous team. Their over-under total for the season's 9.5. I think that's legitimate. But I think you're probably looking at a 10, 11 win season for Texas and a national title contender.
And just to give our viewers in the moment example of what you can gain from reading and keeping it as a reference more than anything, the Phil Steele college football preview is when you run down the Texas offensive line. I'm remembering reading there that, obviously they had that long drought without NFL draft selections up front on the offensive line. And then they've obviously recruited and developed in a great way over the last 3 to 4 years since Sark showed up. But they, despite just a loaded offensive line from a talent perspective last year, they actually regressed in the run game, gave up more sacks. And so even though they're losing a ton of talent up front on the offensive line, including a first-round draft pick, and I believe a third-round draft selection as well, they should be able to maintain those numbers in the run and pass protection game.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with the running backs they have, like Wisner, Baxter, and Gibson, all returning. And I like the additions that they have at the receiving core. And of course, Arch Manning's legs are going to help. When you have a more mobile quarterback, you're going to improve on your rushing yards per carry, and you're also going to cut down on the sacks. So I think having the mobile quarterback will help the offensive line as well.
Drufus, we appreciate you stopping by. Thanks for the contribution. Says here, Mark, Phil, and the day off. Go Blue. All right. That's a good combination right there. Appreciate it, Drufus. And I think, Phil, you must be peeking at my list of teams because you just seem to be going to the next one. And the next one is Georgia. Gunnar Stockton, of course, had a difficult assignment to take over in the SEC championship game at halftime and then face a Notre Dame defense that really got after him. And of course, the big play that turned into a strip sack that kind of turned that game around for Notre Dame. You mentioned the drop passes that were the undoing of Carson Beck last year and them trying to fix that portion of the wide receiver game. Your thoughts about Georgia? You obviously are pretty high in them possibly getting back to the final game.
Yeah, and when you look at Georgia last year, they were number one in the country coming in. I think everybody thought they might have been the most talented team in the country. But their three toughest opponents last year were Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas. And I'm a big schedule guy. And you look at Georgia last year, they lost 2 of those 3 road games. Well, this year, their 3 toughest opponents are Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas. They get all 3 at home. They haven't lost a game between the hedges since 2019. So it's been 6 years. They're undefeated at home in this decade. I do think Gunnar Stockton gives them more mobility at the quarterback position. Not as experienced as Carson Beck was last year, but when you look at the team overall, I like the additions they have at wide receivers. Zachariah Branch coming in from USC, Miami of Florida's Colby Young coming in, Texas A&M's Noah Thomas, Vanderbilt's London Humphreys. They have an upgraded receiving core, and that's going to help Stockton have a good season. Defensively, I mean, you could go 3 deep on this defense, and they've got VHTs or 5-star recruits all the way on the second and third team. And I think that their defense coordinator, Glenn Schumann, does a great job with that unit. So I think the fact that they get the toughest games at home has me calling for Georgia to win the regular season of the SEC. And that puts them in the playoff. And you get a coach like Kirby Smart in the playoff with a great defense, you've got a shot.
No doubt about that. Let's move on to the Big Ten. A couple intriguing teams. And again, everyone, keep in mind that since we're not talking Ohio State, Michigan, a number of your favorite teams that we had Phil on a few weeks ago. So we touched upon most of those, Penn State included. So check out that live stream posted right here on the Voice of College Football. Iowa going into the offseason. And my thought process, Phil, with Iowa was they were stacked and ready to do something in 2024 with all that veteran leadership and talent on the defensive side and all that productivity on the defensive side. And then, of course, Caleb Johnson had a great season, and Cade McNamara looked to be what they needed on offense to be a game manager, and they just didn't make it happen in the defense. Sorely underachieved, and they didn't have the draft selections that were anticipated on that side of the ball, so that might have told us something. So I didn't feel good about this Iowa team at the outset of the offseason, but the more I look at it, certainly based on your resources as well, as part of my research, would be offensive line, defensive line stout. I believe you've got them rated number 8 on both sides of the ball up front. And Mark Gronowski, just looking at, let's say, a Max Brosmer at Minnesota, and Gronowski's a better quarterback, or should be, than Brosmer. And Brosmer fared well in the Big Ten, that Iowa might be able to do something. And they've got those difficult games at Kinnick against Oregon and Penn State, that they might be able to work some of that Kinnick magic.
Yeah, and I think the schedule is the key with Iowa. You touched on a couple of things. I love the fact you said that their defense grossly underachieved last year, and that was my impression as well. When you see Iowa's defense, you expect them to dominate a football game, and there were games where they were giving up big plays. On the year they gave up 318 yards per game. That's Phil Parker. He's one of the best defensive coordinators. And last year's defense was not dominant. They were just very good. And you and myself thought Iowa's defense was down, which it was last year. They do lose some key players. They lose the outstanding linebackers that they had in Higgins and Jackson last year. But I think Phil Parker will have them be towards the top. I love the addition of Gronowski. And, let's keep the quarterback healthy for once. That's been a problem. Cade McNamara went down. All of a sudden, it's Jackson Stratton and it's Brendan Sullivan who's going to be the QB. If Gronowski stays healthy, operating behind that O-line, they should be in good shape. It'll be more of a running back by committee this year. But they've got a schedule that either puts them in the Big Ten title game or gives them a mediocre season, because they host Penn State. They host Oregon. Those are two of the best teams in the country. Lose those games at home, and that means your winnable games, Nebraska, USC, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Iowa State, they're all on the road this year. They're going to have to win some big games on the road. So that concerns me, the overall schedule. But I tell you what, the schedule looks great if they knock off Penn State, knock off Oregon. But I have them middle of the pack in the Big Ten because of the schedule this year.
Absolutely. You're hitting on the tricky portion of trying to size up a schedule, because do you want the easiest games at home just to bank the wins, and thinking, hey, we're going to lose the top 5 teams in the country anyway, regardless of where we play them. But if you're a team like Iowa that has this recent history, long history actually, of pulling off these upsets against top 5 and 10 ranked opponents, then hey, if they pull off at least one of those two against Oregon and Penn State, maybe they've got something going.
Yeah, and Kirk Ferentz, one of the best head coaches in the game. And they are, I put a blog on philsteele.com about homegrown teams. Iowa is a homegrown team. When I talked to Coach Ferentz, he's leaning towards shifting to that. Less transfers, more freshmen coming in, develop the freshmen. And I think you're going to find teams like Clemson, like Iowa State last year, hell, like Army and Navy. Those two teams had much better seasons than anyone expected. And it's because they were homegrown. I feel they have the best team atmosphere and team chemistry.
In the addition of Tim Lester as offensive coordinator prior to 2024 wasn't really celebrated across the country. But man, what he did at Western Michigan in regards to developing the wide receiver room there and turning average prospects into NFL wide receivers. And he, we've heard from him in recent days on our Iowa show that he really loves this wide receiver room, and they might be under-regarded this year. And we know that room has not been impressive for a long, long time, but they might have one of their better groups of wide receivers this season, and they're always loaded and deep at tight end. All right, Phil, this Illinois bunch, they are really fighting history. I heard a stat yesterday, Indiana appearing in the preseason poll for the first time since 1969. For Illinois, it's 1990. Anytime that they have had 8-win seasons in the last 20 plus years, they have never followed it up with a winning record. But of course, this team looks rock solid, veteran quarterback, manageable schedule, and Brett Bielema knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I think the difference with this Illinois team, as opposed to those past ones that had success and then fell off, those teams that had the big seasons, all were senior-laden teams that pretty much were expected to do well. This Illinois squad last year went 10-3, but they didn't blow me away. They didn't dominate opponents. Their two best games, their best game probably came in the bowl against South Carolina, a team that could have made the playoff, and then, of course, upsetting Michigan at home. But this year's Illinois team's at least a touchdown better. Luke Altmaier made great strides last year. They got Fegan and Lowry in the backfield as running backs. Bielema has put together an offensive line. You know, he knows offensive lines. He's got 5 guys back who started the last half of last season. He's got NFL prospects across the board. Maybe all 5 guys get drafted. Who knows? That's a heck of an O-line. Defensively, they got Ackes and Thompson up front. On the D-line, they got Scott and Cox, one of the best secondary players, along with Bailey. So this team is even better than last year. Now, the schedule could set up well. The key game, I think, for Illinois this year is September 20th at Indiana. Indiana's loaded. They have to win that on the road. Might be a playoff elimination game. But don't be surprised if they win that game that this team could be contending for the Big Ten title, because they host Ohio State. Last year was the 7th game of the season. They took on the defending national champ that lost a ton in to the NFL draft, and they beat Michigan at home in an upset. Well, this year in the 7th game, they host Ohio State. Who knows? Maybe they could pull an upset there. And then there are other tough road games at Washington, at Wisconsin. Neither will be easy. Both teams are tough at home. But I think Illinois is capable of getting those. So I think this is an Illinois team that's a clear playoff contender this year. I believe 3 teams from the Big Ten, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, all make the playoff. The key is who's going to be that 4th team. And maybe that Illinois-Indiana game on September 20th determines it.
Phil Steele, of course, he is the king of college football's industry standard preseason publication. You have to have it, and you can keep it with you all season long. And then, of course, if you go to philsteele.com, you can get the supplements digitally each and every week on a regular basis. So, Phil, we so much appreciate you breaking down everything for us, and the intel and the research. And you just have to learn how to be able to decipher all this. That's really the only challenge here, folks. But he packs in probably, what have we looked at in regards to number of pages? It's like 5 times what you see here, based on how he's able to pack in and just be exhaustive in his research and detail. It's just remarkable. So, Phil, we thank you so much for being here. And it was great to have you on for a second time this summer.
Yeah, always great having conversations with you, Mark. I'm really looking forward to reading your book, and I think everybody should get out there and get that book, because that should be pretty doggone interesting. Remember, though, the magazine, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and philsteele.com. But always enjoy our conversations, Mark.
Yeah, I'll get you a copy. I'll be in touch.
Or else I'll just go out and buy one, for crying out loud.
All right, Phil. I appreciate it. The one and only Phil Steele. So much appreciate him not just stopping by once this summer, but he said, let's do it again. Talk about some other teams. We have our Miami show lined up for 2 p.m. Eastern time. Usually at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but you know what? I'm going to play a little pickleball tonight. So we've got Cam Underwood and myself, Miami Live. That's at 2 Eastern. And then keep in mind that the college football show that used to be an afternoon deal, we are moving that next Monday. We are moving that to 10 p.m. Eastern time. So we're going to be here 10 Eastern. And I can't find the banner, but we're going to be here 10 Eastern Monday through Saturday. Can you believe that? Monday through Saturday, 10 Eastern or post game, whichever comes first. And we kind of will size it up in regards to post game. So we're not going to sit here until 3:30 in the morning to wait for a Mountain West game to be over on a Thursday night. So we're going to typically show up about 10 Eastern, or if it's a really good game, we'll be here post game Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right here at the Voice of College Football. Again, taking your calls every night, Monday through Saturday, starting next Monday, August 18th. We'll see you on the Miami show in just about a half hour. And yes, I'll take the thumbs up. Helps with the YouTube algorithms. College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.